ready to vote on those? All right, do I have a motion to adopt? Second? All in favor?
All right, next item I have tonight is really just an update to the board. Each year, we have certain expectations that we set out. It started with 200% accountability, went all the way back to COVID. Coming out of COVID, we have focused on certain priorities across the district, and two of those priorities are in front of you on the screen, which has been safety in our schools. And so you see where we continue to monitor each and every month. Jamie Moore collects this data. Many of us walk around with QR codes on the back of our cards. When we're in buildings, we will try to make sure we cannot get into an exterior door or an interior door that's supposed to be locked. And we have other officials that go through the district and try those doors, and our SROs try those doors, and we calculate that data on an ongoing basis, just like if you were driving around seeing seatbelt percentages signs on the highway of what percent of folks were wearing seatbelts in a given month. And that's what we're sharing with you tonight. And then the second item we're measuring closely is trusted adult. This came out of our mental health initiative, and it's where we ask students, do they have a go-to person, whether they're in crisis or going through a traumatic experience? Do they have a person in the building that they feel comfortable enough to go through as a trusted adult? For some of our students, that's a principal, an assistant principal, a teacher, a coach, custodian, whoever it may be. We make sure that those are in place. And again, we continue to monitor those numbers. And Mr. Moore was sharing with us this morning, if you look, we're really at all-time highs. Well, not all-time highs, because back in November when we first did our Trusted Adult push, you'll see we hit 97, 98. But off the last couple of months, we're at all-time highs across the board on these three items. We want to share that with the board tonight. It's not an action item, just give you an update on how we continue to monitor. So those are interior doors as compared to outside doors. We used to just do it all together, and then we started realizing we have a tremendous amount of delineation where we almost have 100% on our exterior doors. But we started this year after we had the situation at Appalachia and so forth. Interior doors being locked became more of a priority. We used to not have that expectation that always inside doors were locked. And there's still a few cases where we still don't have interior doors locked, kind of on purpose. And examples of that would be you have sometimes special education classrooms that are near each other, that have in-between rooms, and so we utilize paraprofessionals and adults to monitor both of those classrooms, and we want them to have the resources of everyone involved, and so we don't want those doors locked. But for the most part, we want our school doors locked, and so that's a check of our interior doors.
So are people that are going to the schools and they're checking those outside doors, that's the first number?
That's correct.
They also check inside when they're doing that?
That is correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Somebody else, that was a separate
No,
thing.
it can be the same folks. A lot of these entries are made by our SROs too. They do a great job, and they also work with Matt Cox's team if they ever find a door. Sometimes you have a door that's just having a hard time locking and it's a mechanical issue. They do a great job resolving those very quickly.
I don't know if Eric or Avery or anybody's here, but are we, in terms of the interior, like I know when I go in schools, I know exactly which doors I can get in, and I know the ones I can't, and of course most of those that I can't are in that center column. So are we, most of all those in the 70s, is that, what marker is that good in compare, others are in the 90s, so I'm just, because since we just started breaking that apart, I'm not sure what's the target going to be in that.
That's a great question, Brian. I think there's no doubt we would like to see that well into the 80s. I would like to see it well into the 80s. It's never going to be 100% because, again, there's doors that we do not have the expectation. That's been a long-standing kind of conversation about, you'll have conversations with kindergarten teachers going, it sounds like easy to lock a door, but every time you let a kindergartner and a parapro go out to a restroom, they got to come right back in, and a lot of times that can disrupt instruction at an elementary level. And again, that's one of those that's tough sometimes because we don't want our kindergartners to feel like they're in prisons and it's the clank of a door locking in like a jail cell with regard to that. So we've always had conversations about inside doors, which ones are expected to be locked and which ones are not. But I would definitely tell you that we have room. Avery, you agree we have room for improvement there, and a good target number of that would probably be somewhere in the 80s. We need to work our way there. Is that fair?
just looking at it, that, those being in the 70s, knowing kind of what those doors are, that's not like, oh my gosh, that's 20 points less, and not a panic number compared to those others, knowing where, okay.
Other questions about this data? All right, then we're going to move on to the third item I have under teaching and learning tonight, and that is that we are bringing forward to you the 25-26 proposed middle school and high school agenda updates. The great thing about this one is we are not asking for any action tonight. We just want to give these, provide these to you, let them sit for a couple of weeks, let you have time to review them. I know Mr. Gerard has shared these with me, and I went through the substantive changes list. I do not think there's much there that will be of either controversy or any issues with regard to that, with regard to our offerings, and then also what we're putting in agendas. We also are going to make use of time. Aaron said we're supposed to be getting some guidance from the DOE.
Yes, one of the things that is not in the agendas right now is that the Department of Education attorneys are writing a boilerplate that will be the first paragraph of the acceptable use agreement to put the districts in compliance with state law. So we expect that, we've been told we'll get that before the month of April is out. So it could conceivably be, we get to your next meeting, if you so choose to approve the agendas, we may not have that. However, we will need to add that as well, all districts, prior to publication.
Mr. Gerard is here to answer any questions, and Mary, if you can hear me, if you'll click on the middle school substantive changes, and we can start looking at.
If you'll move down, there we go.
Perfect.
So just quickly, while she's clicking on that, let me remind us all of the process. So early, 2 months ago, we began the process of getting ready for the next school year, which is so crazy. You know, we find ourselves finishing strong the year we're in and preparing for the following school year. So I ask all the every department or person that's in charge of each area. For instance, Andrea Williamson English reviews all of the medical information in there. Aaron, the technology information. We send it to our attorneys for them to review all the sessions. And then we bring them back and we put them what is before you today. So I just wanted to go over the substantive changes, but you have the documents in their entirety if you'd like to take a look at those as well. Just as Kevin said, we don't need approval tonight. You have a few weeks to peruse those, and then I will come back and ask for approval in 2 weeks. So if we're looking at the substantive changes for the middle school document, you'll see that we have added some clubs. The clubs are pretty much self-explanatory, with the exception, if you're like me, and we might need a little more explanation of those that are in Spanish. So the Desperante Club, don't judge, Laurie. It means wake up. It's their announcement club. So that is their club that they're going to do at WLA Middle in regards to their morning announcement club. Then we have El Mercado, which is their cafe club at WLA as well. Then we have the fishing club at Cherokee Bluff Middle School. And then I should have had you up here. The Hispanic D Amistad. Obviously, I need to brush up on this. That is their honor society for middle school for WLA that's focused on service. So those are the 4 clubs at middle school that we're asking to be included. And then at the first item was the artificial intelligence guideline that sort of Aaron alluded to, but you all have seen actually a version of it at a previous board meeting. That is going to be a link so that we could keep that updated with pertinent information as that changes. Of course, we talked about how that is changing as I speak moving forward. So those are the additions for the middle school handbook that we're proposing. The revisions there are the middle section, and these revisions, by the way, you'll also see on the high school, so I'll only go over those one time with you. The breakfast lunch prices have increased by 10 cents for the next school year. We also have updated ELA courses in middle school and high school next year, and elementary also, by the way, but those courses have been updated in there with the new standards outlined. We have updated immunization requirements. Really, this is more of a revision. They're really not updated. We're just updating where we are notifying parents. So prior to now, we've been sending out individual letters, but we thought it might streamline the process to have it included in this document that all parents receive. So that is just updated immunizations regarding the flu and the meningitis requirement specifically there. Then we had a few revisions of the Code of Conduct, really based on our attorney recommendations. So we clarified the definition of recording devices, specifically in regards to two-way recording devices utilized without, that we want those utilized only with permission. So we clarified that language in there. We also refined the provisions in regards to a felony criminal charge. Specifically, that means that if a student is charged with a crime that could be considered a felony if they were an adult, we included that language in there now based on the revision. And then we also clarified the cyberbullying language, which will be in effect this July, and it then clarifies that cyberbullying primarily is considered cyberbullying when utilizing a school-issued device. So those were the clarifications in regards to the Code of Conduct. Then we had a little bit of language change in the BUST conduct in regard to electronic devices again. I'm seeing a theme here, by the way. AI, recording devices, technology devices. This just clarified that students can continue to use their own devices, their own computers on the, or Chromebooks on the bus, but just clarified that if it interferes at all with the driver being able to give directions, that the driver has the authority, of course, to ask for that to not be utilized, or can approve headphones. We typically don't allow headphones on the bus, but if a student needs to use that time to do some work, then the bus driver can give provision for that. So those are the revisions based on the Student Code of Conduct. And then down below, if you'll scroll, we have some deletions, mostly of clubs, and I put the schools that those are on. Any questions or clarifications in regards to the substantive changes in middle school?
On the bullying thing, so you're saying if it's not on a school device, we're not responsible for it, it's like on the telephone, law enforcement has to deal with it, not us.
So that's such an interesting question that we've been debating, Deborah, and this is a new code, so we will learn more as it comes out, but what we are understanding currently is that a student might not be charged with cyberbullying per se, so they might not get a bully strike if it's not done with a school-issued device, but if it's a personal device and it still disrupts the school environment, then we still can give a consequence. The consequence just might not be a bully strike. Does that make sense? Thank you for that question. Any others? Okay. Yes, sir.
In reference to the felony charge, so are we saying that a child could be charged with a felony based on adult standards?
No, sir. The way I understand it is if a student is charged with a misdemeanor because of their age, however, if they had been 17 and committed the same infraction, it would have been a felony, then at that point we have the ability as a school system to treat that as if it were a felony charge. So there are circumstances if a student is charged with a felony that we as a school system can make the decision that if it's disruptive to the school environment, that we could then do a tribunal or a waiver. So this gives us the ability to do that even on a misdemeanor charge if it would turn into a felony if a student is of age. Does that help clarify that? Okay, good questions. Okay, then if we could switch to the high school substantive change form, you're going to see it looking very, very similar. You'll just see some changes in basically clubs. So you see the addition there of flag football at both Johnson and West Hall as school clubs. Then you see the addition of the artificial intelligence that we've already talked about, that link to that guideline. CTAE plus guidance we added, that was new to this school year where students can get academic credit for the completion of pathways. So we detailed that description in the agenda for parents and students. We're already doing that, but that did not pass, the DOE did not pass that along to us until this school year, so we needed to update the agenda to match that. And then we did not have a concise work-based learning description, and so we added that as well. So again, not really new additions, things that we're already doing, we just wanted to refine, with the exception of those flag football and artificial intelligence guidelines. The revisions, if you scroll to the middle, those are identical to what we just talked about. The middle school agenda and the high school agenda are identical in code of conduct. So those are the same things that you just saw in the middle school. And then if you go to the bottom, you'll see some deletions of clubs at 2 of our schools. Okay, so again, those outline the substantive changes. You have the entire agendas for each school if you'd like to peruse those. The middle school agenda, just as a reminder, that is the same for every school, but each high school has a unique agenda with some unique requirements per school, if you'd like to look at those. Again, peruse those. I will come back to you in 2 weeks and ask for a final so that we can get those to the printer. Thank you.
All right, I guess, Jonathan, you're up.
Yes, sir. TAVT report is before you. March collections were $1,155,302.90. Slightly up from this time last year. Is a little bit down from last month, but that's typical for this time of year. If you have any questions, just let me know.
And I guess you're doing the budget, or?
We have 3 different or at least a couple, I think. I'm going HR and transportation, maybe? All right, so we're just going to go through, obviously, over the last couple of years, we started doing budget presentations as we get early into the budget calendar season, trying to share a little more details as we go department by department. So as Mary clicks on this one, I think we're up teaching and learning first and foremost. Each of us are just going to speak for 2 or 3 minutes, give broad overviews of where we stand this year with regard to budget requests. For teaching and learning, I use some of the same images, I think, every year, but it's because the same pieces, the numbers are variables, but the same issues are kind of in place every time. So if you go forward 2 slides, there you go, 1 more, you'll see, if I'm trying to point out to the board the significant changes compared to like last year. Last year at this time, we had a proposed budget item of about $4 million for a reading core curriculum, which would turn out to be benchmark workshop. As we went through that process, we learned that we could have an installment plan to take care of that purchase and would save us a significant amount of money, not necessarily on the $4 million purchase price, but on the fact that we could make installments with 0% interest and draw interest on our money in the interim. And so that's exactly what we're doing. So this year you'll see a budget item in teaching and learning section for $1.28 million. That is, again, going to show that we're way down off of last year's budget comparison because of the way we're doing this, but I also want to explain that to everybody in the room. That's still kind of on that task of moving forward with our reading core curriculum piece there. We have additional professional learning costs that are in our general ed budget. This is not our, we have Title II federal funds that are dedicated to improving teacher quality, but this is the general ed, the Hall County side of it. There's going to be about $850,000 in professional learning costs compared to about $750,000 last year. There's a reason for that, and that is because we got clarification from the federal government that there's certain things that we needed to take care of on the general side that they would no longer be approving on the federal side, and that equated to about $100,000 worth of professional learning that will still be provided. That, by the way, if you want to know what area that was in, it was related to gifted certification and endorsements and when we provide that training to those individuals and when we could claim that as whether it was a federal expense or whether it needed to be on the general ed side. And then the last thing, that picture of that teeter-totter has been there for about the last 4 years, and that is just a reminder that there is always this give and take with regard to special education contract work versus payroll. And so let me explain to you that. The biggest piece of that, the biggest dollar amount there would be speech and language pathologists. You can't find them. I mean, Carla has done that work before. Obviously, Betsy is now our special ed director, but it is hard to find speech language pathologists around this state. That's not just a Hall County problem. That's not just the state of Georgia problem. That is a national problem. We've worked with our preparatory programs to try to get more programs open for speech and language pathologists, but each year we have to put money in the budget trying to figure out, are we going to be able to find somebody and put them on the payroll side because we've hired a speech and language pathologist, or if we can't find them, we've got to put money on another budget line so that we can contract with people that do that work via contract, so a third-party contract. And it's always been a mixture. What I always tell Will as we go through this is we love to find them and hire them and let them work for us because it's cheaper than it is to do contract. And so a lot of times you're paying money, when you're paying for third party, you're paying a fee for them, and then that person gets even actual speech and language pathologist gets less. So it's always advantageous for us to be able to find them. Sometimes we cannot, though. And so we put a dollar amount and we try to get it right, but I'm telling you, it's hard, and often we'll come back to Jonathan and say, we're over on one side, but that typically means we're under on another. So in other words, we'd placed it in payroll, but it turned out we're going to have to do it third party. And so that's always a battle. That's just a great example, and it's the largest dollar amount example that happens in the teaching and learning budget. Any questions about that? I mean, that's not something that we're only prone to in teaching and learning, but it's definitely part of the budget challenge we face sometimes. I'll defer that question to the auditor dude over there.
The state specifies those count codes and where they get classified to, and so because of that, and the way we have to run our state reports, they determine which, in this case, object code, whether it be payroll versus contract work, and they make a distinction between who we hire and who we contract with.
Next slide, Mary, please. So this one is just pointing out that there is no more ESSER funds. We are wrapping up the books. ESSER funds have been expended. That's no longer a thing that we have as a resource available to us. The great thing for us is that we are able to provide a level of continuity of needed services. Unlike a lot of districts pumps a lot of money into people for ESSER. And now that those ESSER funds are gone, there's a lot of people going, how do we pay for all these people that we added during those times? We had a very few number of individuals that we paid out of ESSER funds. We spent our money on different resources in the district, but because of that, we're much better positioned than a lot of districts in the state with regard to continuity of needed services. So we've had a few places where we've kept people that we hired during ESSER, switched them over to the general fund side of the shop, but it's been very limited number of spots and positions that we've done that for. And then the last slide, Mary, as we go forward, I think I put one more slide there. Probably the biggest thing I want you to hear about dollar amounts in the teaching and learning budget. Remember, I have student services under mine, assessment is under mine, curriculum and instruction, gifted, but the huge dollar amounts, even Rhonda and CTE has some substantial dollar amounts, but a lot of that we get Perkins funding for and so forth. But the big dollar amounts in mine this year that you'll see of increases is that we have a dramatic number of increases in the number of self-contained classrooms at the elementary level. And I want to point out to this board, those are primarily on the south end of the county. So when I say self-contained, we're talking about like self-contained EBD, behavior, mild, moderate type classes, or the highest level of autism. So those are classes that you just can't have like 10 kids that are severely autistic and you not provide a teacher for. So a lot of times when you have more kids that are qualified in those areas, it is an absolute given that you really don't have a choice. You're going to have to hire a teacher. You're going to have to serve those kids because they have more severe needs. And because of the fact that we've got dramatic increases in those self-contained classrooms, there's dollar amounts there. And so there was a day not long ago that I had to go to Will and say, look, just based on allotment numbers. There's a good side that comes from it, which is that QB funding formula is going to take care of itself, and so you're going to draw more funding. Remember, those types of classes have weights, and those weights are going to draw more QBE funding, and so you're going to get more dollars coming in from the state, but there's going to have to be teachers that are going to be hired there, and a lot of these classrooms are going to require parapros to be in them as well. I just don't want you to be shocked, and you'll also hear it from our leaders, because we've had to go to several of our principals going, I need you to take one more self-contained class. We don't put, if we had 5 self-contained classes down the south end, we don't go to one school and say you get all 5. We go to south end schools where those kids are served. That's why they're there. It's where the kids need those services, are in that south end. It's where a lot of our growth in Hall County is coming from, so that shouldn't surprise anyone. And then we actually go to where we have a few principals that have space and say, we need you to take a self-contained, whether it's an EBD, mild, moderate, autistic class, or so forth with regard to that. But that is probably if there's a huge difference this year compared to previous years, I wanted the board to have an understanding of what's happening there. And it's just, the proof is in the numbers and the qualifications. So, I think that's it for me on my side. Yep. Questions that?
The person that's gonna try to replace you.
The good news is there are probably no less than a half dozen people in this room that possess a lot of that knowledge, Mr. Thompson. You're very kind. We have a solid team of great individuals and a lot of young and up-and-comers, so we're not poorly positioned. I'll just tell you that with confidence. All right, Mary, rotate it to the next group.
That'll be us in human resources. Mallory, or somebody's running it for us. Thank you. So we always start our HR budget presentations each year by talking about our current numbers. So you can see that we've got 3,636 employees currently. 2,275 of those are certified staff. That includes teachers, counselors, media specialists, administrators, all certified folks in the district, and then 1,364 for our classified. The average teacher salary in Hall County Schools is $72,250, which we're proud of that because that makes us very competitive with others in our region that are at our same size. Of course, it's difficult for us to compete with a Gwinnett. That's just not a possibility, but we are very competitive in our area. The average teacher in Hall County has a master's degree and has 15 years of experience, and so that's how we calculate that average teacher salary. And then if you look at the average teacher salary plus benefits, we're at well over $115,000 per teacher in terms of that, those benefits that are added there. And you can somewhat see part of that in the next numbers that I'm going to share, and that is the employer portion of health insurance premiums. For the last 3 or 4 years, and Brad, you can correct me if it started before that, I've just been working in HR for the last 3 years, but every year, and sometimes even twice a year, we've seen increases in the employer-paid portion for our health insurance premiums. And so they just raised our certified employees up to $1,760. It had been $1,580 prior. Then they raised it to $1,760, and now we're going to be at $1,885 beginning July 1. And then if you look at our classified employees, it's currently at $1,580, and they're jumping that up to also be at $1,885, so that all employees will be at the $1,885 per employee per month. And so just our portion of health insurance premiums for our employees is $22,620 annually. That is a lot of money going into that average salary whenever you are going into that cost of a teacher. So it's not just salary, but it's that insurance premium as well.
And as you probably know, that part of the QBE funding formula we get reimbursed some of that for the certified people. Classified is locally funded. So that is a big hit from the standpoint of the raise and hence the cost.
And it's also, I'm sorry, Craig, go ahead.
And we do not get to shop for insurance.
We do not get to shop for
Also, on
insurance.
if it hasn't changed, certified employees, we pay their portion whether they take the insurance or not.
Well, it's part of the QB funding formula, so some of that comes back. But yes, there's an allotment there for that. But we get $0 from the state for classified employees.
Right. And one of the things that this really hits us hard on is that we do get that in the QBE funding, but if we have an employee that's coming out of, for example, Title I funds, we're going to have an instructional coach, for example, in our Title I schools, then that school has to set aside Title I, has to set aside $22,620 just for the health insurance for that individual before we ever start talking about TRS contributions, which I'm going to get to in just a minute, or any other benefits that we pay for those individuals. So it's really our grants, especially our federal grants that come to us, where we take the biggest hit in terms of when we are using those funds for personnel. And so that has a big impact whenever we're sitting down and looking at 6B money, which is our special education funding from the feds, Title I, Title III. So that's where we really get hit there.
What is the average salary on our certified people, on our classified people? You've got teacher salary up there. Are we paying more for their insurance now than we are on their salary?
Yeah, that is correct. And it depends, though, Deborah, based on what the employees, but I will tell you that for For a paraprofessional, for example, yes, there are many of our paraprofessionals that we pay as much in their health insurance premiums as we do in their salary. Absolutely. Yeah. And I can get that average for classified employees for you. Okay. Next slide. So every year, and it really doesn't vary from year to year, but basically the 85% of the total proposed budget for our school district is from HR, and that is something that we really can't control a whole lot of, because remember that you'll see under FY26 there's a proposed $2,000 raise for certified employees in the state budget. We don't get to control that piece of the puzzle, and so 85% of our budget is set for us in many ways, like through our state health benefit plan premiums, through the state salary schedule. So that's a huge chunk of our budget every year that we have very little control over. And so that's where it hits. And look at what's happening with our TRS contributions for this upcoming year. We're going from a little under 20% to 21.91% in the contribution that we have to make per month per employee for certified folks, or actually for everyone that is participating in TRS. Okay. Next slide. We are happy to report that we have about 100 more active subs now than we have over this time last year. We're at up over 1,000 active substitute teachers. We have been so grateful for our priority subs that the board has approved for us, and we are very excited that we are able to provide those for our teachers. Then we also have 19 of our UNG Rise Up paraprofessionals. Remember that those are our folks who are graduates of Hall County Schools. They are bilingual, and they are working in our schools as 33% paraprofessionals while they go to school. And then we have 18 teacher residents this year. We have 11 from UNG, 1 from Piedmont. And for the first time ever this year, we have a UGA resident teacher. That person has been at Lanier Elementary School, and that's been an exciting time there. Currently, their salary is $48,000, but we are kicking around some ideas, one of which might be to put them on a T2 scale. And we're looking around at some other districts, because that's another situation where we want to remain competitive, because we've got Forsyth, we've got Gainesville City, we've got a lot of our area school districts that are all competing for this one pool of teacher candidates for that resident program. And so we want to be competitive in that way. And so that's something else that we are kicking around and would like to talk about, potentially increasing that salary. All right, next slide, please. This year for FY25, we have hired 509 new employees this year. 316 certified, 193 classified, and our teacher retention rate remains at 91%, which is a really solid retention rate, and we're proud of that. And we want to thank this group. If we can go to the next slide, I want to thank you guys for helping us with digital advertising. About 2 years ago now, Clay, was it 2 years that we started with bus drivers? So about 2 years ago, we started our digital advertising campaigns for bus drivers, and then last year we expanded that to teachers. And Clay and I were talking not long ago, it's been since Christmas break, that for the first time since he's been here, and for the first time that I can ever remember, we actually had more viable bus driver applicants than we had openings. And that's just unheard of. I think at that time we had 20 openings and 40 viable candidates. And so that's an amazing thing. And so we'd like to request to maintain the allocation for digital advertising in our HR budget, because that is a low-cost way. Remember, it costs us about $4,000 for 100,000 impressions on digital advertising, through whether it's a YouTube video where an ad is going to run, or it's Hulu. Somebody's watching Hulu, they might see one of our ads, and those have really paid off for us. It's a small investment for a big return. Okay. And I think that's it. Anybody have any questions that I can answer?
Digital worked out better than us parking that bus down there with that big sign.
Yes, sir. It's a whole lot easier to do it.
I would say that they've both been very successful. Those big signs with buses have brought in a number of people over the years. So it's going to take everything we've got in this labor market. So.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Speaking of buses, they came right into you, didn't they?
Yes, I'll agree with Carla. Every time I start a new campaign, every time we start a new campaign, we get, I get about 3 or 4 applications a day. And we just started one 3 weeks ago, and I'm still getting 2 applications, it seems like a day. So it's been amazing, really. It's been a very good thing. Kevin, I don't believe you. I think you were untruthful. You've been a pleasure to work with. I'm not sure there's anybody who'll be able to fill your shoes, but I'm sure we'll do our best. Also, I wanted to let you all know, I had 2 folks from the central office contact me today to tell me I had to keep this under 3 minutes. And so, Jonathan, if you will, I'm gonna start right now, and I'm gonna do my best.
40 seconds,
No, I'm just now starting, come on. Okay, let's see, first one. Yes, sir, the budget for last year, as you see, $6,685,110. Next year's budget, I've asked for an increase of about 6%, $418,743. There's a lot of volatility in the market. The 3 things that really affect me or my department are metal. Almost all automotive parts are made of metal. Fuel, obviously, is a very big part of my budget, and to a lesser degree, rubber for tires. The fuel, as you see, I have increased by roughly $400,000, $350,000. And then you see the breakdown. We're still using about a little over 400,000 gallons of diesel. You know, this has been a very difficult year to try to make a guess at what things are going to cost with what's going on in the world, obviously. I'm sure you all have been paying attention. So this was a difficult budget for me to put together because all I can do is try to make an educated guess, and that's what you're looking at here. The number of LP gallons is going to continue to go up because we're going to continue, hopefully, to buy more propane buses. We're still we'll get great service out of those buses. The bus drivers love them. The families love them. The principals love them because they don't emit any harmful gases on campus. It's just an all-around good situation for us, and I'm glad that Hall County jumped on that early. And there's 125,000 gallons of gas. The white fleet continues to grow. There's, like I said there, some uncertainty regarding market conditions. We've just added some minivans to the fleet, and we've added additional gasoline buses. We now have some activity buses at the middle schools. So that is going to increase our gasoline usage. Next slide. Okay. Let's see. Additions. Who's got this? Who's controlling the? Okay. Anyway, the additions due to market-driven cost increases. We've asked for continuing inflationary cost increases, especially in parts and metal, which I mentioned. School bus body work has been a big one for us. In other words, when we have an accident, the cost to repair a school bus is quite costly, and so that continues to be a factor. Other additional costs this year, we're opening the north side shop there at Walker Mountain Elementary School. That's been a huge success for us. Just, you know, outfitting the shop with parts and what has to be done to open something like that. Tires, you know, we had
a good meeting with our tire supplier, and I think we're up about 7% in tires for next year. We're also looking at adding multiple software-related expenses. We've talked to Will multiple occasions. We're making multiple improvements in several different areas of the department, and the bus radio situation, which needed it badly, bus key containment and management. Time Clock Plus is something that we've added that we're still working with. So we've made multiple different additions there, trying to increase our efficiency. Okay. Requests for next year. I'm requesting that we add a service called Armor Cloud. It's a data connection from the bus to the user directly that would allow a live view. Actually, there's about a 8-second delay, I think, of what's going on inside the bus. The best two benefits we'll see from it is if there's ever a safety situation on board the bus, something that we don't see very often. If there's a dangerous situation on board a bus, and it would benefit law enforcement to have a live view of what's going on, and then they would have the ability to have that live view. The other thing that it would do is it would give our lead drivers and some other users at the transportation department the ability to pull historical video as requested by the school administrators without having to travel across the county to get a hard drive off the bus. We have spent a whole lot of time driving around the county retrieving hard drives out of buses. So this will be a direct connection. It can be downloaded in your office, and it can be watched, and it saves a lot of time. So the second part is also related. I have requested 16 stop arm cameras to begin a program that will automatically record school bus stop sign violations. We have a problem in Hall County with people running the school bus stop sign. Edgar mentioned to me that I ought to show you all a couple of videos of close calls that we've had, but I knew I was limited to 3 minutes. How am I doing, Jonathan? So, at any rate, statistically, this type of program is the #1 best way to stop that from happening. It limits it by 60%, and that's been a statistic that has been true pretty much around the nation. So I'd like to start with 16, and talking with Aaron, we'd probably like to do a pilot program first of around 6 and see how that works. Just make sure it works the way it's supposed to. You have to have Armor Cloud for that program to work the way we want it to. And so
I'm 100% in favor of this. Those close calls are going to turn into a dead child sooner or later. When people, that's how you lose a child, is when someone runs a bus stop arm or the red lights, and there is no other way. So if we can reduce that possibility by 60%, I am amazed at the number of reports I get of people running red lights and cross arms on buses. You would not think that would happen. It happens weekly, and we have had close calls. So say no more, Clay. I think we're good with that one.
We have a 1 day a year that the state makes us count, makes the bus drivers keep up with how many run the stop signs, and number was 55 last year. This year's number, I think the day is April 25th, so that's next week. And so we'll have a really recent number, probably end of next week. so. Any questions?
The data collected from the cameras, you said they can pull it down anytime. Where will it actually be stored?
So the data is stored in the vendor cloud. And your next question may be, what about the topography in Hall County? When there is no cell phone signal to the cloud, it actually stores it on the hard drive and then uploads it once the signal is reestablished. But it is not high resolution in the cloud, but it is high resolution on the hard drive that's a backup.
And Aaron, I found out after we spoke that REI rents their service from Microsoft.
Okay.
And so he said that's the best you'll probably.
It is. That's a Microsoft Azure cloud. It's good.
Looks like there's an 8-second delay. Where, now, are we going to monitor those live, or I'm a little fuzzy on that part of it.
Well, we have about 260 buses that are on the road at
Right.
any, during route time. So obviously we can't.
Well, I guess more of my question is, are we going to, like,
They wouldn't be monitored at all, Brian. They would,
Okay, I
they would,
know we're going-
they would be there if there was an emergency and we needed to get into bus 21-14. Also, we still have the information on the hard drive. You might have an administrator that says, I'm getting a lot of bus write-ups on 22-7. What's going on that bus? And they can easily pull up the historical footage from the last week and say, wow, we need some help on that bus, so.
And I can give you another real-time example. I mean, very often we get a phone call, hey, this bus is weaving, or this bus almost struck a stop sign or something like that. And so we would definitely immediately go to that bus's video and make sure everything's okay. That happens weekly.
so the live feed's there if you need it? And when you mentioned 55,
Violations.
yeah,
yes.
what period of time was that 55 in?
That was one day.
Oh my gosh.
Keep in mind, a lot of those are on people, a lot of people are not aware that when you've got a 5-lane road, Browns Bridge is their most, and there's no physical median, you are supposed to stop both directions. So that number's higher than it seems, but one a day would be way too many of those.
Well, I think this is great. What will be the means whereby that people know this is happening?
Goes immediately to the sheriff's office. We've talked to them about a potential on the fines of a 50-50 split, which Clay said they were fine with, and that's been the conversation that I've had also. And again, that may very well pay for the system over time. There's no reason to do it, but it goes to the sheriff's department, they investigate it, and they take it from there.
I will also say that the sheriff and the county commissioners asked that I do a PR program before the school year starts.
That's my
Yeah, and
basic
so
question.
I'll do a couple of radio interviews with WDUN, and I'll get an article in the Times and try to get one on Northeast Georgia, and then I'm sure Stan he'll work with me on the Facebook page. We'll get something on there, and I'll do the best I can to get the word out.
Educate people, because what you're talking about is happening. It's when there's a lot of lanes, because I've stopped before and people going by me, and they don't even realize the kid, and I know the kid's not gonna cross that main highway, they're putting them off on the other side, but they don't stop, so they don't know if a kid's crossing or not.
Right, and so hopefully we can educate as well as we can with what.
Word will get around fast when you do a few tickets, I
Yes,
can tell
ma'am.
you. That will be your best PR right
That's
there.
right.
That's people knowing you do it, you're gonna get a fine, yeah.
And really, to me, one of the best things about it is I don't have to touch it at all. None of my people touch it. It goes directly to law enforcement, and therefore I can't fix anybody's ticket. See where I'm getting at?
Those do work good. I can remember we went on vacation one time, my husband swore he didn't run a red light. Well, then when the little picture came in the mail, he got down there and paid that fine right away. He did run that red light, so.
Brian, back to your comment about the live feed. If we have a worst-case scenario and law enforcement needs to have a live look in, we have currently in place a memorandum of understanding where they can look in live to the cameras in our schools at that moment of need. We see just expanding that MOU to include this application.
That capability is, it sounds.
It's in place right now.
Sounds fine, yeah.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a kid, kids, you can actually see the bus, you can call up which bus you want and see if that kid, if a parent's lost, or the kid slept and didn't get off the bus and the parent's panicking,
It's
you can go that
invaluable.
bus and look.
That's invaluable. But usually it happens more in the afternoon, because the bus would make a stop and the child didn't get off, and then the parents are gonna call us and, they're gonna be upset, understandably. And so we can go and find out, look for the child on another bus, or give the administrator the ability to look at some other buses and find out where they are.
That's 3 minutes and 4 seconds, so thank you, Clay.
Thank you.
Kevin, have you gone already? The only other thing I want to mention about budget, Jonathan, you had a conversation. Apparently, we may very well be getting a even later digest this year, and it may be later than even we received last year. You want to talk just a little bit about that? Because I see two options that we could live with in terms of that coming in later, and it has to do with software adoption at the county.
Yes, sir. So normally in January is when we give y'all a budget adoption calendar, which specifies the dates when we anticipate the hearings and passing of the millage. I'm sure many of you have noticed we've not produced one yet, and that's because because of House Bill 581, Tax Appraiser and Commissioner's Office are updating their software programs. Those implementations have taken longer than expected. Right now, they anticipate a preliminary digest, hopefully by May 12th, and then a final digest by June 6th. And before we can do our advertisements, we have to have those digests. And so that pushes our advertising schedule further back. So one of our options is a continuing resolution when we reach July 1st to start the new fiscal year, continuing under the old spending agreement with a limit on how much. And then the other option would be to pass a budget without a millage. So those would be two possibilities for us.
And there are a number of districts that set millage at a later date. The course would be the option of taking a wild fanny guess at what the digest is going to be, and that's a no-go for me. We have no idea what resetting values on 44% of our properties to FY23 values, but it's going to be multiple millions of dollars. And so I would just suggest we go ahead and go with the spending resolution. We've done that twice over the last 7 years. It's really not a big deal, and then we go ahead and adopt and come up with a schedule that makes final adoption in July. But that's certainly up to you all. So. And I'll poll you all individually in terms of what you want to do with that. So,
If there's nothing else, I guess you're handling East Boston?
Yes, sir. Not personally, but East Bloss report is before you. Collections for the month of March were $3,441,149 and some change. If you have any questions, just let me know.
down a little bit again from last year, as I'm sure you also noticed with the with our other local tax, vehicle tax. Project updates, Matt.
Yes, sir. We have quite a few tonight to go through. I have actually 8 reports for you. That's because we have done an early start over spring break on 3 of our quote-unquote summer projects. So I'm going to go through these as quickly as I can, but please slow me down and we can back up and do this however we want. But first off, Johnson High School. This is the addition, 3-story addition out back. This project also had some work that just started, which was the Learning Commons. We've found a way to route the kids around so that we could get that early start on Learning Commons, which is a pretty involved project. Don't have any photos of that in here because it was just kind of whirlwind to even get it started, but we do have that work started as well. But what you see here in the photos that we do have are the 3-story addition. We've now poured the slab on all 3 floors. And so we are making very good progress on this. The contractor is now reasonably comfortable in saying that, as you'll see in the schedule, we believe we can do a mid-year occupy January of '26, which is something we've been working toward, but it's looking like that this project is going to hit that kind of schedule. So we're working with the school. We'll work very carefully with them, keep them updated, but moving into a space like this when this is really relief space from the modular and the annex up the hill should be a pretty easy thing to do as a mid-year move. So we'll keep you guys updated on that as we bring these reports every month. But this project is moving along very well, and we're very pleased with the progress on it. Second report is on the bus facility. This is the addition of the two additional bays. It's 3 structural bays, but 2 additional bus bays. This one's also moving along very well. You see the metal building is here. We've fully skinned and are now beginning to work on finishing out inside. Our next moves will be what you see there, the 2 areas with the wood framing around it. That is fall protection for where the lifts are going to go. So those are going in right away here, and so we're making very good progress on this. We do anticipate this being done by June. So again, we're very, very pleased with the progress on this project. It's moving along very well. We will then move inside, do a little bit of renovation work inside the main building, restrooms and some other things as we have some time this summer. And a lot of that work will actually be done by our trades and training program. Next one, Flowery Branch High School. As you recall, this is an addition, kind of an outside area, outside covered area for our 3 labs, our 2 engineering labs and our welding lab. This project is also coming along very well. We anticipate it will be complete by summer, so we'll be easily in for this fall. But it's moving along very well as well. Next up, North Hall High School. I think what you're going to see is by this time next month, you're really going to see a big difference. What you're seeing now, you're actually seeing our footings going in and seeing us do some of our prep work for this summer. We have some canopies going in this summer. But there's the footprint of the building. Over spring break, they did go in and tear out some of the administration area that's adjacent to the addition to go ahead and begin to get some of that work pulled together for this summer. This project will actually go through 2 summers, so we'll have some work this summer. We'll do some of our restroom renovations, and then the second summer we'll finish those up and do some of the tie-in work that happens, including taking over the old administration area for counseling. Next up is the next 3 are our 3 summer projects that have started early. This is East Hall High School, so basically this was the band room, which was originally a gymnasium, so you can kind of see the open structure there. So we have gone in, gutted that. There's quite a bit of work here, so the first thing we had to do was demolition. That was a good thing to do over spring break to get us started. But this one is moving along very well. It will take all of the time that we have to get this complete. There's quite a bit of work in this. Over the summer, we'll also move into the main building and work on our manufacturing lab, which there's some renovations in the main building there, but that won't happen until this summer. Next one is Sardis. This is restrooms and learning commons renovation. And again, this is work that just began over spring break, but we were able to get a lot of the demolition work done in that area. Likewise, on the next one, I apologize, that says North Hall High School. That should say Sardis. Next one is Tadmore Elementary. Tadmore, are doing quite a bit of work there to get a learning commons that's more functional, so you see a lot of tear out here. But this is, again, why we start these things over spring break is so that we can make for good news on the other end versus us having to go into the next school year with this kind of work. So the school was able to work with us to give us a large area of the school so that we could go ahead and begin our demolition, which has now started. And our last project is Everwood Elementary School. Not a lot to say here, but a lot to say because we're finishing up. What you'll see now is we have the parking lot striped, we have landscaping in, and we anticipate our temporary CO tomorrow. The architects and engineers have done their punch lists, and you're just seeing a lot of final cleaning, beginning to see some move-in, furniture moving in. And with that, I want to turn it over to Laura Hitzkes, the principal of Everwood Elementary School.
Hello, everybody. We are so happy to be here today. And this is Katie Olson. She will be my partner in crime, assistant principal at Everwood Elementary. We've had a very busy few months. Lots going on. There's a lot to do to prepare for the opening of Everwood in August. And so I began the process by focusing on what matters most, which is the people. So through the months of December and part of January, I met individually with personnel from both schools, so from Oakwood and from McEver. Being new to both, because I just started at McEver in August, so really didn't know those folks as well, and Oakwood as well. So sent out a sign-up genius and had teachers sign up, met with them individually, gave them an opportunity to get to know me, for me to get to know them, for them to ask questions, share concerns. It was time well spent. It took a long time. It was 20 minutes per conference with the teachers, media specialists. I met with parapros, I met with cafeteria, I met with office staff. So it was anybody who wanted to meet, and that's what I did for those first couple of months. Time well spent. I was able to get the right people on the bus, get them in the right seats, and now we're moving forward. So following that, after having everybody, we have 2 more vacancies at this point, but everybody else is in place at this time. We've provided the opportunity for teachers to come together. Since we are merging the 2 schools, we wanted time for them to come together, to meet, to plan, to dream, and just to get to know each other before the start of the school year so that they're not strangers when they start. And it has been wonderful. The teachers have been very receptive. The departments have gotten together, the grade levels as well. We were invited. We've even done observations, classroom visits at Oakwood and at McEver. We were invited to go to Miss Riley's 4th grade classroom at Oakwood, and they did a press conference and asked us all the questions they wanted to ask us about what was happening with Everwood. So that was a really cool experience. We also asked teachers at the very beginning of the process to apply to be a part of the advisory team, and we wanted equal representation from both schools. And what we do, we come together, we collaborate, and we make shared decisions on things that impact the whole school. We have created a vision, a mission, a motto for the school. We are meeting monthly, and now we're actually ramping it up since we're getting closer. We're going to meet twice a month to make those decisions that we need to have made in preparation for the start of the school. So it has been a wonderful opportunity for them. We've had teams come together outside of school as well. They've met for lunch during planning days, and so that basically has been the focus, is just bringing the teams together and getting them excited. Oh, and the next one. Yes, and to be able to communicate outside of just the advisory team, we created I like the name of this, the EES Hoots and Highlights, which is a newsletter that goes out to the Everwood team, and we've been sending those out periodically just with updates, anything that comes up. Instead of just flooding them with emails, we put everything in an update and send it all out, and it gives them an opportunity to reach out to us with any questions that they may have. And everything's out in the open, very transparent, and we have felt the excitement, and this has helped a great deal, just sharing everything that we can share. And they're going to be so thrilled to know that the certificate of occupancy is coming maybe tomorrow. So that's super exciting. So, go ahead, Katie.
We are also working with our partners in ed from McEver and Oakwood to join us at Everwood. And one of them is a new partnership that we have with our McEver United Methodist Church. Reverend Tyler Jackson and his little council came and toured the building with us, and they were super excited, asking lots of questions, and just really excited for the collaboration that we're going to have, being neighbors on the property. They're super sweet, and I just can't wait to build that relationship with them. We also have a team building exercise that we're going to have with all of our staff for Saturday, May 3rd. We're going to do actually a scavenger hunt around the Gainesville Square. just give them a time for fellowship and get to know each other outside of the confines of the classroom and in the school. So this is just something completely off the chart that they're going to do, and just hopefully get to know each other a little bit better, because we want them to know each other before they show up for pre-planning. So we've got that scheduled. We also have next Tuesday, we're going to tour the building, so hopefully you guys can come. We have some tours set up for all of our grade levels to come in May so that they can tour the building with their group to see their spaces. But this is a special time next Tuesday that hopefully everybody can come to and just see the amazing things that have been done so far. And then I think the next one is about open house. Yes. So this is our open house that we're going to have. We are actually splitting it into 2 different sections because we want everybody to be able to come in and see the entire building and not feel rushed or cramped. We want to take a lesson learned from Deal and kind of make sure that we have that in place. So we have kind of spread it out to be a little bit earlier and a little bit later than what was planned, so that hopefully everybody gets a chance to see everything that they wanted to and ask the questions that they want to before school starts. And we also have the Everwood dedication and ribbon cutting ceremony that's going to be on the 25th, and more to come later on that. So I think that's about it for now. Do you guys have any questions for us? Good deal.
One of the things we need, Craig, is if the board is so pleased to move the meeting location of August 25th to Everwood School, so we can do just like we did at Deal.
As a recommendation that we have a venue change for that meeting.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All in favor?
Matt, you've got a contractor recommendation?
Yes, sir. We have one contractor recommendation tonight. This is for the North Hall Middle School Site Improvements Project. You see in front of you here, we had 2 responders, both local companies, both good companies, well qualified. Chattahoochee Group is the winning contractor with the lower bid. We have vetted them out, checked out references, but we've worked with them many times in the past, and are a good company and quite well qualified to do this project.
You need that tonight.
I do, if you don't mind.
I'd like to recommend Chattahoochee Group be approved for this project.
Have a motion? Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Project funding request, Matt and Aaron.
The first one is moving items and preparing current Oakwood for World Language Academy Elementary. In this is some things that are not necessarily technology, but things with long lead times, such as we're going to move the signage, the print signage as much as we can from World Language to Oakwood. However, some things have to be recreated. For instance, Matt talked you through the long car rider line, so we need signage for all of that. It also includes equipping with cameras and access points and card access for the trailer. We're moving from World Language Primary over to the Oakwood side. We're also going to take the opportunity to add a additional security door with the locks and the card access in the office and in the front hallway to bring it up to standard of the rest of the elementary schools.
Next item is related to the North Hall Middle School. This is the funding request for the site improvements project there with the numbers that you saw before with the contingency added in case we run into unforeseens. The next one is...
By the way, on that one, want to thank Bo as a parent who has actually experienced that, gave us some great ideas, and we actually changed that plan a little bit, and we think it's going to work much better. So thank you, Bo.
Next one up is Cherokee Bluff High School Special Ed renovations. If you've ever been in this area, it's just a lot of really small rooms, very cut up. So what we're basically doing here is moving some things around to open some of those spaces up to be more usable, opening up the kitchen, training kitchen in that area, and then enlarging one of the restrooms to provide a changing table within that space. We believe this is going to make a big difference for Cherokee Bluff.
And Brian, don't fall out now. But I asked for too much money when I asked for the money for the student Chromebooks, I inadvertently included the Title I Chromebooks along with the General Fund Chromebooks, and so we exceeded our one-to-one student to machine ratio. So I'd like to return $575,000 back to the general SPOST account.
Can we mark that on a calendar somewhere?
Aaron promised to do that every month after I left. 575,000 coming back every month.
Just because some of this involves summer work, I would like to request that we approve these budgets as recommended.
Do I have a motion? Second. All in favor?
The final is a variance request. Some of you may or may not be aware. Bo, I'm not sure you're on board, no pun intended yet. When the county commission came to us and wanted to add a library in East Hall at the East Hall Park, because you all own that property, and we were unanimously for that, I think it would be great for that community to have a library there. But then the way they're going to build it, which will be in addition to the center that is already there toward the road, we need a variance request, and since we are the legal owners, we need to make that variance request. So I'd like to recommend that we allow that variance request so that the East Hall Library can be constructed on that property, and I'd like to make that in the form of a recommendation.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a second? All in favor?
And once again, of course, those are all county commission funds, but that'll be a great addition for the East Hall community.
Personnel.
Hey, in front of you is the personnel packet that I sent to you on Friday, and as I indicated in the email I sent on Friday, this time of year we're going to have high volume of recommendations, and so I would like to request action on this tonight, Mr. Schofield, if you're in agreement with that. And we will try to do that at each of our board meetings, work session and regular meetings, just to keep that, because we're having to keep up with that volume. If you've got any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
When you're ready, I'd like to recommend the personnel packet be approved as presented. And again, Carla will continue to send those to you several days ahead of time so you have time to go through them.
Second. All in favor?
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that's all we have for the regular meeting. I'd like to suggest we take a quick break, and you've got some dinner for you tonight to go through our training session. Kevin, you want to talk just a little bit about that?
Yeah, we're tickled to death to have Corey Kirby here tonight that's going to go over the second half of the module on legal issues and ethics for boards of education.
I don't know that I'm tickled to death.
So, I'm tickled to death. What I'm more pleased is Tim has told me that we're going to have a swear jar, and every time that Corey uses a profane word, he's going to owe us $25 back, right, Tim? So we might make some money before this night's over here with a lawyer in the house. But I want to thank Tim Cochran for being here, Executive Director for Pioneer RESA, to sign off on our board training. Remember, this is the second half of module, and remember, boards are required to go through training each year, 9 hours for regular board members, but it's more than that. It's 12 for our board members because they seek to be exemplary board, and they've achieved that honor each and every year that it's been presented as an opportunity, and I'm proud of our board. And again, we're going to do that work tonight, but first we're going to get a little bit of dinner, and we're going to come back in here and turn it over to Corey Kirby.
Sounds great. Brian, would you mind asking a blessing for our dinner tonight before we get started?